So yes, thank you so much for being here. We had a session for our staff from Jacob last week, and we just want to do a follow-up for our families. And so we're recording this for our families, so if they're not able to join, they can also see it at a later time. We've collected some questions, and the way we'll do it is the first 30 minutes, we'll do it in English, and then the 30 minutes will be in Spanish for our families. And Teresa and I will be doing it in English, and Diana will be doing it in Spanish. So, and she is bilingual. So if Maria, you could do both, if that's all right, if you could ask the English ones, and then after in the Spanish, would you be all right with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. So first, would you mind just giving us an overview of Pisgah Legal and all the amazing services that you all have?
Yep. So Pisgah Legal Services is actually the second largest law firm west of Charlotte. And we provide all of our services to meet civil basic needs for families who are under-resourced in Western North Carolina. We predominantly focus on Buncombe, Transylvania, Madison, Polk, and Rutherford County, but we have various programs that go into other areas too. So we provide civil basic needs legal services. So sometimes that's just advice, and sometimes that's court representation or filing of documents. We've got all sorts of different teams. There's an immigration team, a domestic violence prevention team, a foreclosure prevention team, homelessness prevention team, benefits team, health justice team. So we're sort of compartmentalized by expertise, but we really like to pride ourselves on the fact that we're holistic. So say someone calls in because they think they have a housing issue, like a landlord-tenant issue, but we uncover that their food stamps were erroneously denied, or there's domestic violence going on, then sometimes an individual might have different team members managing different cases for them. You know, we're up to like 96 employees now. We have offices or attorneys in offices in at least 12 locations. Our most recent was in Cashiers Highland. We opened an office to cover Madison and Macon in Jackson County. So we're growing, and ironically enough, we've hired, I think we're at 13 people. 13 new staff have come on board since the pandemic. So it's kind of a moving target, but at least we're growing. We're not shrinking in the middle of all of this. We do have an online application, so people can go to our website and they can apply for services day or night, anytime. We just need to take income information, family size, sort of resource-based information. We don't require any like paycheck stubs. You know, we really just go with people's answers. And then we just make sure they're in our service area and they have the type of legal issue that we handle. One point I'll make there is what we don't do. What we don't do are personal injury cases, and we don't do any criminal representation. So things like a speeding ticket, things like a DUI, those services one could, theoretically apply to get a public defender, so you can have free defense in those matters. So we just don't touch those.
Thank you so much. Woo, we all do a lot. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we've been around just over 40 years. And wow. I've been there for 17 of those. So
that's amazing.
A lot of growth.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of growth in 17 years. Wow. Yes. So what is Pisgah Legal's eligibility for clients? And I know
similar to what I just said, it's really just type of problem or case type, income, and service area. And we can determine that really quickly through a phone consult or when someone files an application online. We also take a lot of pride in directing people or redirecting people. If they've called for an issue that we don't handle, we give people phone numbers and pass that on.
Wonderful.
Pass them on.
in the past, so if a family has already been represented, is there a conflict of interest? Can you talk a little about the conflict of interest?
So conflict of interest works in that we could not represent someone who was an opposing party in a previous matter. So let's say someone calls because their landlord is trying to evict them without going through the proper procedures. Well, we have to have that landlord's full name. And if we say, for example, found out that we had represented that landlord in a previous, like helped her get a domestic violence restraining order, that would be a conflict of interest. So we wouldn't be able to take a case like that. I work on the immigration team. And so our opposing party is almost always the same thing. It's either the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service or ICE Customs and Enforcement. So sometimes an opposing party can even be an agency.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So how do you support our Latinx population? And can you speak a little more about DACA and undocumented migrant families?
DACA. We're all waiting with bated breath about what is going to happen with DACA. It has been a roller coaster. DACA is a program. It stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. A lot of people casually refer to this as Dreamers, but it really is an action that it's a deferred action status for people who came to the United States when they were under 16 and before the year 2007, actually June 15th, 2007, have completed high school or either in high school or working towards a GED, have a minimal criminal record, and have resided consistently in the United States since their initial arrival. So if they can prove all of those things, they can get, really the most important and the easiest way to explain what they get is they get permission to work in the United States, which in the state of North Carolina also allows them to get a driver's license. They will move into a category where ICE, the enforcement arm of immigration, will defer taking any action to look for them or deport them unless they commit a serious criminal offense. So that's a little background on DACA. We had it and it was up and running from 2012 to 2017. Estimated about 800,000 young people enrolled in that program received their DACA. And then in 2017, the administration we currently have put it on pause, said this was not, no one could continue to move forward and apply for DACA. A lot of complicated court cases, and eventually the government decided to allow people to renew it if they already had it, but no one new could come into the program. 3 days ago, there was some more court cases. There's been lots and lots, but 3 days ago, it was determined that that was sort of done in error, that that is not the case and it can't be changed and stopped so easily, and it needs to come back into place. So we're waiting with bated breath to see if initial DACA applications are allowed here in the short term. President-elect Biden has said that on day one of taking office, he will reopen the whole program and make it look like what it did originally. So that would be late January. So we're really hopeful that at least by late January, we'll be able to file initial DACAs and file renewals for the 2-year period. But it could come sooner. So we just stay tuned. We really all have to stay tuned on DACA. The other ways that we support the Latinx community is that we have an immigration team. First, let me say, Pisgah Legal Services, all of our services are available to undocumented immigrants. You do not have to have any sort of status in order to receive our services. You just have to meet that income eligibility, live within our service area, and have a type of case that we take. But very specifically, we assist, I would say, the Latinx community by doing lots and lots of public presentations, know your rights events, outreach, things like that. And we have a team of 4, soon to be 5, Immigration attorneys or individuals like myself. I'm not an attorney, but I have a special license, and with that, I can represent immigrants before both USCIS and the Immigration Court. And what we really do is we get people in on an individual basis to do a thorough evaluation and consultation with them to see if there is a pathway, if there's a remedy or a petition they could file to get status or to change to a more secure status. So there's lots of different types of statuses that immigrants apply for and have, and some of them are more stable than others. I can say it that way. So sometimes we assist people with changing their status or moving into having status, legal documents to work and to live in the US. Sometimes we do it for the first time too. And I would say, each of us take on average 10 new cases a month. So that's a considerable amount of people that we're moving through. Do a consultation, do an evaluation, and then if a remedy is available, file the paperwork for them to get it, and then help them through the process of waiting. There is a lot of waiting when you file immigration paperwork.
I would love to open that up if anyone has any questions. Teresa, did you have a question?
I mean, I have some questions I wanted to ask, but not about that, what she just talked about.
Okay. What is the best term to use for immigrant families, someone that is undocumented?
So when we're talking about families, most of the time, the majority of families are what we can call mixed status families. So you just got different people in the household with maybe different nationalities, different levels of status. So as a family unit, I often say like it's a mixed family household. So if I'm talking, or if I don't know everyone's status, I could say it's likely that it's a mixed status family. If you're talking about an individual, we try to just say undocumented immigrant, not like person, like she's an undocumented person. So just say undocumented immigrant. And that generally refers to someone who doesn't have documents to be legally have immigrated into the United States, generally. I think we'll probably see some change with the language over the next few years, but for now, that's a pretty accepted term.
Thank you. Thank you. So is there a way for undocumented immigrants to be able to have health insurance?
So that can vary from state to state. In our state, undocumented immigrants could go and buy a private health insurance policy, from the private market. Undocumented individuals cannot use subsidies through the Affordable Care Act. So that's not going to be a possibility. They can get emergency Medicaid. So emergency Medicaid is really important. If you have an emergency situation, you present at the ER and you file for emergency Medicaid. I believe it is within 60 days, could be 90 days of your entry into the, having the emergency. There are many types of emergency situations that can be covered. Pregnancy you can get pregnancy Medicaid, no importa, it doesn't matter if you're about your status. And that is for during your pregnancy, birth, and for a little bit of time thereafter. And really, those are about the best options for like health insurance and the sort of limited options that they are. What undocumented people do have unlimited access to are free medical clinics or reduced, like sliding scale medical clinics. They're, what are they called? Federally qualified health centers. And so undocumented individuals can go there because the specific purpose of those health centers are to serve underserved and underinsured populations. And so there's a great directory, nationwide directory available online where you can find those qualified health centers. Here locally, we have a number of them. In Asheville, we've got Minnie Jones. Down in Hendersonville, there's Blue Ridge. several out west. There's some small ones out there. Most communities have them, and those are certainly free and available. Some of them have a sliding fee scale, but those are available to undocumented immigrants.
Very good to know. Thank you. And I didn't know that an undocumented immigrant was able to go through the private insurance. So that's good to have that option. I'm sure a lot of money. Yeah. Yep.
And that again is something that changes from state to state, and quite frankly changes from a lot of it has to do with how you prove who you are as well. Sometimes that can be a challenge for individuals if they don't have like a government issued ID or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What rights do families that are undocumented have?
So, that's kind of a question that depends on the context, what you're talking about. If it's, if they're being arrested, they have the right to remain silent. If immigration comes to their door, they do not have to open their door. Say ICE comes over, they don't have to allow them in unless they have a search warrant that specifically names an individual that's in the house. In the criminal context, they have a right to a trial. They have a right to apply for a public defender. In the context of like resources in the community, they can get, certainly go to a shelter. They can receive in-kind donations of food and supplies. Generally, in most states, California being an exception, they cannot get access to many public benefits. So things that we think of like food stamps, vouchers, childcare vouchers, Section 8 housing vouchers, housing. That said, going back to what I mentioned about mixed status families, sometimes two of the members of the household could qualify for any or all of those benefits, and two of the members wouldn't. So let's say in the context of a housing voucher, if a mixed status family went to apply and they were low income and they meet all the other criteria, if two of the people were US citizens and say two of them were, from Nicaragua, not US citizens and not with any LPR status, undocumented, they will prorate the benefit to that family. And so they would be prorated for the two members that, if rent was $400, they would get $200 a month, sort of deal. So, when we talk about what rights do they have, it really, you kind of have to narrow it down to the subject matter, but those are some things that come up really often we get asked about. One thing that is really important to mention, a lot of people want to know if they married in another country, is it recognized in the US? And yes, it is. And if you divorce in the US, then you're divorced. So you can marry in one country and divorce in another, as long as you meet the requirements within that country about those things.
Thank you very much. So WIC, everyone has the right to WIC and early Head Start and Head Start. Is that correct for WIC at least?
So I'm actually not sure about early Head Start. I have not looked into that in a long time. So WIC is going to be a benefit that is often for the child that's born and the family that it's in. So it's kind of like a package program, so they'll get benefits. It's the benefit, in fact, is for WIC is under 2 still, is that correct? Or under 5?
Under 5.
Under 5. So the recipient there is the under 5-year-old. So that's the person who's going to be getting it.
Okay, and early Head Start, I know, document.
Yeah. They're not gonna, that's not gonna be in a, it's an education issue. So it's a little different. Someone has a right there, again, to like education. Undocumented immigrants can go to school, the children go to school. That starts to change when you get into community college and when you get into university.
Correct. Unfortunately, yes. So the last question that I have before Teresa or actually before Maria joins, how can a family get support with getting a power of attorney for childcare or financial support in the case if the parents are deported back to the country of origin?
Right. So we do power of attorneys all the time. you know, there's a lot of reasons families could need those. But most certainly immigrant families get very, very nervous, thinking that one or both parents could be deported. What I like to point out is that it's very important for those individuals that are worried about being deported to have a consult with one of our immigration staff attorneys or myself or Noelle to figure out what's the likelihood. You know, there are certain groups of people who are at much higher risk for being deported or being sought out by ICE. They might be on the fugitive ops list. So we really want to hash out with the family, like, generally immigration is not running around looking for a single mom with a couple of kids who's working at a factory, unless she's been removed from the United States previously and has re-entered, or unless a certain amount of, you know, we want to really dig in with someone to help them do a risk analysis about that. And then do some safety planning, some family safety planning around what would happen if, okay? And so mostly what that looks like is getting your documents in order. And one of those documents, absolutely, if you have children, is probably going to be a power of attorney. But making sure you've got passports, you've got copies of Social Security cards, you've got a list of doctors and medication and prescriptions for those kids. You've got letters of recommendation in case DSS were to take your kids, who you would prefer them to be placed with. Not that DSS is going to totally follow that, but it's good to have in there. It's a starting point for them. So we like to do some of this sort of like family safety planning with individuals, and then most certainly put them into our power of attorney clinic and get them those documents drawn up. Then they hold those documents until they need to use them.
Thank you. That clears a lot. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bria, do you have any questions right now?
Not really. I know a lot of my families were interested in the power of attorney issue.
Yep. So they can actually go right to our website and they can fill out an application and just put on there like legal need, power of attorney, and would like an immigration consult or whatever it might be. But we have a whole slew of volunteer attorneys and volunteer interpreters that really help make those happen. It brings people a lot of peace of mind. And really what we've seen is hardly anyone ever has to use them, which is great, but the relief that they provide is so worth getting it done, especially if you can get it done for free.
Absolutely. Lisa, do you want to do the second half?
So yes, this has been so informative. Y'all do a lot of advocacy work, a lot. And I wanted to ask about like the public charge rule. Did we I'm kind of confused about that, and so to be able to help my families out, can you?
Yeah, the public charge is confusing. It's really scary, and there is a ton of misinformation about it. The background of the concept is when someone applies to the US government, to United States Citizenship and Immigration Services to get documents, to get status, we do a variety of checks. We do a health check, we do a criminal background check, and there's this public charge check, which essentially is, are you likely to become dependent on US public benefits if we give you a green card and allow you to come to the US? So that's what the concept of public charge is. It's sort of this like, it's just a little test. And what has happened under the current administration is that this administration has really made that sort of checklist much, much stricter. And so it's got people really, really scared. What people don't understand is the public charge rule only applies to an individual who is applying to get their legal permanent residency card, their green card, okay? So not DACA, not a U visa, not an H visa, all sorts of things. It doesn't even apply. Public charge doesn't matter. It only matters for people who are applying to get their green card. So it doesn't even matter, like if you're moving from having a green card to becoming a citizen, doesn't matter. So that's one piece about it. It's actually fairly limited to the group of immigrants that this rhetoric even counts for. There's whole groups of people that are just barred from it, that never will matter. The other thing is the person who's applying to get the benefit is the only person who counts about public charge. So if that person's children have used public benefits, it's fine. Their spouse, their parents, doesn't count against them. It is really only what they have used, and then some other things about them have been added with this administration, like how bilingual are you? What's your education? Do you have health insurance? Are you healthy? Do you have any pre-existing condition? There's a lot of things that were added under this administration that put public charge back in the news. And then it, similar to DACA, has turned on, has turned off, has turned on again and off, and then now it's back on. I mean, there have just been a slew of different circuit courts throughout the United States who are challenging the increased strictness around public charge. But the thing I like to really push with my families is that it is very specifically about the person who is applying to get a green card. And unfortunately, many people are never going to be able to even apply to get a green card under the current immigration law. So public charge kind of doesn't matter. And furthermore, it doesn't matter if you're an undocumented immigrant, you haven't gotten any benefits anyway. You can't unless you've committed fraud. And then we got a bigger issue than public charge.
Oh, that's good to know.
Another clear as mud answer there. Sorry about that.
So I was wondering, you talked about like y'all do a lot with your advocacy work. You do a lot of presentations and stuff, and one of those presentations were entitled like "Know Your Rights." Do you kind of I know with probably previously to before COVID, I mean, you know, maybe it was a more available. Are y'all still doing them like by Zoom? Because that may be something that, or do y'all list that when you're going to have them on your website, or how can I get my families to kind of
to know about it? I mean, the best way is just things like this, like literally just if an agency, we love it when we get invited versus us having to like drum it up, you know?
Okay.
So I particularly like talking. So I will go all around and do presentations all over Western North Carolina. You know, if a church would invite me, if a little, you know, migrant worker group invited me. It has looked quite a bit different with COVID, but I have done, you know, probably 6 since then, kind of small group sessions. And there's 2 asks that we get in that department. We get community members who are people who would use our services and they want information. So that's know your rights. And then sometimes we have whole like agencies or groups of people and they want to know how to make good referrals to us. And so we're just going to cater the presentation to whoever the group is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What it looks like for now, it looks like this, me sitting in my attic.
So I was thinking about when you were talking as well about, I have one family member who is experiencing homelessness and has is in recovery and has a felony on their record. Is some way that, how can you help them if I was to make a referral? Or would be appropriate? Yeah,
could absolutely be appropriate to us. We do have a whole department, which I didn't list earlier. I can hardly keep up with all our departments. We have an expungement department now, which is fantastic. Felonies are pretty tricky. This is not my area of expertise, but we could certainly get somebody in and do a consultation and see if there's anything on their record that we can help them get off or, you know, clean up. And then we also maintain like lists of employers that work with people who have, you know, less than perfect criminal records. You know, as long as it's not a violent crime, lots of employers, a growing number of employers are opening up their doors and taking people on. So someone could be referred to us and we could do an evaluation on that and just sort of see what, if anything, can we help them remove from their criminal record. If it's an immigrant, Under federal immigration law, expungements don't count. As a matter of fact, expungements make it very difficult to track down the records that immigration is going to want to see someday. So we also take that into consideration in terms of our expungement work. If it's an immigrant, we're going to make sure, like if they really, really want an expungement, they need to get a copy of everything and keep it for always, because the paperwork, thankfully, will disappear into the ethers after an expungement. And immigration doesn't care about that disappearing act.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's a real little tricky little caveat in there. Expungement doesn't exist in the world of federal immigration.
Did you say you had an employment list or an employer list?
We don't have a list. I mean, I actually get the list. It gets sent to our whole office. So somebody gets it from somewhere. We don't generate it. You know who would have that would be what is it? The 15th floor of the courthouse, the
Justice Center?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm
Somebody
trying
over
to
there
get a
who
hold of
sees
one and no one's had one, so thank you.
Yeah. Somebody over there, that's where we get it from.
Okay, that's good. Can you talk a little bit about like the Affordable Care Act and how that?
So we have our whole health justice team. So we've got, I guess, like 4 staff and then an absolute like brigade of volunteers who are, they were previously called navigators, just individuals who can help walk people through the online application for affordable care to help them see what their options are. It is open enrollment right now. Through the end of the year, it is very important that people just try, just take a look at it.
Okay.
There's a lot of like, if you answer yes to this question, stop the application now, you know, or if you answer yes, but, and so it's kind of a cumbersome process. It is a cumbersome process. And so to have someone who's trained help walk you through that and then get you to those final screens where you might have 2 options or 3 options or 6 options. Now, our staff and our volunteers are not going to direct people towards any option, but they're at least going to help them get to that last page in the application process and then help them evaluate, you know, what all these words mean, you know. I mean, there's a lot of just vocabulary around health insurance that can be confusing. Deductibles and principals and copays and premiums and like, you know, just have somebody walk people through the Affordable Care Act process and then show them what the options are in the state of North Carolina right now.
Okay. So I'm thinking about with, you know, this COVID, we're in the middle of a pandemic and, you know, people are losing their jobs and stuff. So how are your agency providing any kind of like assistance with that, or how can you help?
Yep. So mostly we can give people a lot of good information about their rights as renters and homeowners if they get behind on their mortgage payments or their rent.
Okay.
I've been at Pisgah for 17 years and I have never seen what we have right now. We have all sorts of financial assistance programs going on, some to help with utilities, some to help with childcare, some to help with rent payments. It is rent payments because the payments go to a landlord, not to a bank, like if someone had a mortgage. Banks right now are being really, really flexible, and our foreclosure prevention staff is helping people negotiate with their bank if they're getting behind on their mortgage. But our financial assistance department is doing applications, and then we have a team in the office that reviews the sort of specifics of someone's case to determine like, hey, is 3 months of a light bill going to help this person get across the bridge, or do they need 2 months of rent, or, you know, what do they need here? You know, what's that saying? Like sometimes heaven pops up in the middle of a disaster. Like we have had grants and community funding and private donors and churches say, here's a lot of money. help people out. People just need cash right now. And Pisgah Legal Services has a great reputation in the community, and we know you'll do right with our money. Distribute this money through a financial assistance application process. So if somebody is getting behind on their rent or their mortgage, have them call us. We're going to give them legal advice about the proper way their landlord could, the legal way that their landlord could evict them. But in the meantime, get a financial assistance application in for them to maybe get 2 months, get them 2 months down the road.
Is that if they qualify at a certain income level?
Yep, they do have to be low income. They are going to need to be a lower resourced individual. But if you're falling into that, chances are they will qualify. If they're at the point where they've lost their job, we're going to ask them about their income right now. Not if they were pulling in $70,000 last year. It's what they're making now and their household size.
And childcare support financially. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yep. So that would be like, and we might wind up getting somebody over to 4D as well. So we're going to try to give them some money to patch them through, and then also help them figure out, how can I make this work for me going forward as well. 4D is the Child Support Enforcement Agency.
Oh, okay.
We help somebody get over there to, maybe get their child support rolling that hasn't been going for a long time.
Well, that's all the questions that I have. I mean,
Yeah, that was amazing.
A small group is nice because you guys it's easier to focus and you can ask questions.
Totally. Maria, do you have any more in English that you would like to provide?
Yeah. Just for clarification purposes, those financial assistance services, are they also available for individuals who are undocumented?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, okay, no importa. When it comes to applying for those sorts of things, if they receive their finances on a cash basis, do you guys have like a way of handling that versus like instead of pay stubs and stuff, or?
No, we just take people on their word.
Okay.
So we don't require paycheck stubs ever to verify income. We ask people, how much did you make? How much did you make before taxes? How many people are in your house? Do you have a second house somewhere? In all of my years, I just do not think I have ever been blindsided or lied to about that. Most people have a lot of pride, and it's hard for them to be honest. They're not trying to fake it. By the time they're calling us, they know that they're in need and they're down to the wire on something. And so we just take people at their word on what their resources are and what their income is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Maria. We will turn it over to our Spanish version now, and Diana will take over. Thank you.